The sun was sinking low over the western desert, bleeding orange and crimson across the vast sky. Dust swirled behind a lone rider as his horse clopped steadily through the dry land. His name was Ethan Cole, a quiet cowboy who preferred the company of the plains to that of men. He'd been on the trail for 3 days, heading south toward the Pecos River, where rumors spoke of a new cattle drive. But the land was too quiet. No birds, no wind, only the creak of leather and the faint rattle of his canteen. Ethan's instincts, sharpened by years on the frontier, told him something wasn't right. He pulled his horse to a stop. "Easy, boy," he whispered. His gaze swept the landscape, the rocks, the sand, the scattered sagebrush. Then he heard it, faint at first, like the cry of an animal, a sound that didn't belong to the wind. He tilted his hat up, listening again, a soft whimper. Then another. Ethan spurred his horse toward the sound. As he rode over a ridge, the scene below froze his blood. There, tied to a dead tree, was a woman, her dark hair tangled, her clothes torn, her wrists bound tight with rawhide. Around her, the ground was stained with blood and dust. And not far away, wolves circled. 4 of them, their yellow eyes glinting in the dying light, waiting for nightfall. The woman lifted her head weakly, her lips cracked from thirst. She was young, maybe 20, her skin bronze and sunburned, her face marked with Apache paint that had smeared from sweat and tears. Ethan's heart kicked in his chest. "Lord, help me," he muttered. Without hesitation, he drew his rifle. The wolves caught sight of him, snarling. The biggest of them lunged first, and Ethan fired. The echo rolled across the hills. The beast dropped, yelping. The others scattered into the shadows, growling but unwilling to test the man with the gun. Ethan jumped off his horse and ran to the woman. Her breathing was shallow. She'd been out there for hours, maybe longer. "Hey, you're safe now," he said softly, cutting the bindings with his knife. Her arms fell limp, too weak to move. When he touched her, she flinched, her eyes snapping open and dark, fierce, filled with fear. "Don't," she whispered hoarsely. "No kill." Ethan shook his head. "I ain't gonna kill you, miss. I'm here to help." She blinked slowly, unsure whether to trust him. To her, he was a stranger, a white man, the kind her tribe had been taught to hate. He took his canteen and tilted it to her lips. She drank greedily, water spilling down her chin. Then she gasped and coughed, clutching her chest. "Easy now," he murmured. "You're half dead from thirst." He wrapped his coat around her trembling shoulders. Her body was thin, her bare feet bloodied from being dragged. Ethan glanced at the ground and saw boot tracks, at least 3 men, maybe more. Whoever tied her here wanted her gone. "Why'd they do this to you?" he asked quietly. She tried to speak, but her voice failed. Finally she rasped, "My tribe." "Punish me," Ethan frowned. "For what?" She looked away, shame clouding her face. "I help white settlers. Give water. They call me traitor." The words hit him hard. She'd shown kindness, and they'd left her for wolves because of it. Ethan stood, scanning the horizon. Night was coming fast, and with it the cold. He couldn't leave her, not out here. He lifted her carefully into his arms. She was light, barely more than a whisper. Her head rested against his shoulder as he carried her to his horse. "I'll get you out of here," he promised. "Ain't right what they done." The woman stirred faintly. "You risk your life," she said, her English broken. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "Guess I'm just that kind of fool." He placed her on the saddle, mounting behind her. As they rode into the darkening desert, the wind began to howl, and somewhere behind them, the wolves cried again. They reached a small canyon by moonlight, where Ethan made camp near a dry creek bed. He built a fire and laid her down gently beside it. She shivered under his coat, eyes half open, watching him warily as he cooked beans over the flames. "What's your name?" he asked after a while. She hesitated. "Tala," she said softly. "Means wolf in my tongue." Ethan gave a small smile. "Fitting name. You faced him and lived." Her lips twitched, almost a smile, but her gaze soon grew distant. "No, I die soon." He shook his head. "Not if I can help it." He cleaned her wounds carefully with water and cloth, wrapping her arms with torn strips from his shirt. She flinched at his touch but didn't pull away. For the first time in days, she felt something other than fear, a strange, quiet safety. As the fire cracked and the stars rose, Ethan leaned back against a rock, watching her sleep. Her breathing had steadied. The faint moonlight traced the curve of her cheek, the strength in her even in weakness. He'd seen plenty of cruelty in his life, men hanging each other over cattle, wars tearing tribes apart, but nothing like this. No woman deserved to be left for animals. He murmured to himself, "Ain't right, Tala, ain't right at all." Before dawn, Ethan woke to the sound of movement. He sat up fast, hand on his revolver. From the shadows beyond the firelight came soft footsteps, human, not animal. 3 silhouettes appeared on the ridge. Apache warriors. Tala stirred and gasped, recognizing the paint on their faces. Her tribe had come, not to save her, but to finish what they started. Ethan rose slowly, rifle in hand. His voice was calm but firm. "She's under my protection," he said. "You'll have to go through me first." The tallest warrior stepped forward, his eyes cold. "She broke our law. She helps white man. She died tonight." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Not while I'm breathing." The tension hung heavy in the desert air. Fire crackling, eyes locked, 2 worlds about to collide. Tala's whisper broke the silence. "Please, don't fight. They kill you." Ethan looked down at her, his voice steady and low. "Then they'll learn I don't scare easy." The first arrow glinted in the firelight, and the fight for Tala's life was about to begin. The desert night stood still, heavy with danger. The fire flickered low, casting long shadows that danced over the canyon walls. Ethan Cole stood tall, his rifle aimed steady, facing 3 Apache warriors whose faces were painted for death. Behind him, Tala lay weak but alert, whispering in her native tongue, pleading for them to stop. But her words vanished in the cold wind. The tallest warrior stepped closer, his spear glinting. "Move aside, white man," he growled. "This is not your fight." Ethan's finger rested near the trigger. "It became my fight when I found her tied for wolves." The warrior's jaw tightened. "She betrayed her blood. Help the settlers who took our lands. Her spirit must pay." Ethan's eyes hardened. "And you think leaving her for the wolves makes you righteous?" For a moment, silence. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then the second warrior, younger and wilder, lunged forward with a war cry. Ethan fired. The bullet struck the man's shoulder, spinning him to the ground with a cry of pain. The others reacted instantly. One threw a spear, grazing Ethan's arm, blood soaking through his sleeve. Ethan ducked behind a boulder, reloading fast. "Go!" he shouted to Tala. "Run if you can!" But Tala didn't move. She crawled toward the fallen warrior, pressing her hand to his wound, chanting softly in Apache. Ethan's heart twisted. Even now she tried to heal the man sent to kill her. The leader roared and charged, swinging a tomahawk. Ethan rolled aside and fired again. The man stumbled but didn't fall, rage burning through the pain. He grabbed Ethan's rifle, forcing it aside. The 2 men grappled in the dirt, fists and fury flying beneath the moonlight. Ethan managed to slam his elbow into the man's jaw, then pushed him back toward the fire. The warrior stumbled into the flames, his clothes catching sparks. He howled and tore himself free, vanishing into the darkness. The last of them, the wounded young one, crawled away, clutching his arm, shouting curses in Apache. Soon their shadows disappeared beyond the ridge. The desert was silent again. Only Ethan's ragged breathing filled the air. He turned to Tala. She was trembling, blood on her hands, not her own, but from trying to save the man who attacked him. "You're something else," Ethan muttered softly. "Even when they want you dead, you still try to help." She looked up at him, eyes shining with tears. My brothers once, now enemies. All lost." Ethan knelt beside her. "Not all lost. You're still here." By dawn, the first light spread across the canyon like a soft promise. Ethan packed their few belongings, tearing cloth from his shirt to rewrap his wound. Tala tried to stand but stumbled. He caught her before she fell. "You need rest," he said. She shook her head. "No safe here. They return." He knew she was right. The tribe wouldn't stop. He lifted her onto his horse once more, mounting behind her. Together, They rode toward the rising sun, toward the borderlands where the army outpost stood 2 days' ride away. The trail was hard. Heat shimmered over the rocks, vultures circled above, and their water ran low by midday. Ethan's arm throbbed, but he pushed on. Every few hours he'd glance at Tala, her head resting against his chest, her eyes closed, whispering prayers in her tongue. By the second evening, clouds rolled in heavy and dark. Thunder cracked and the heavens opened. Rain poured over them, turning dust into mud. They took shelter under a rocky ledge. Ethan started a small fire while Tala sat beside him, watching the flames dance. For the first time, there was peace, a fragile, quiet peace between two people from worlds that had only known war. "Why you help me?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. "You could leave me." "No one know." Ethan poked at the fire, his face shadowed. "Maybe I got tired of seeing good folks die for no reason. Maybe I just couldn't ride past a soul left for wolves." Tala stared into the flames. "In my tribe, they say spirits guide those with brave hearts. Maybe your spirit sent by the great Sky Father." Ethan chuckled lightly. "Never thought of myself as a chosen one. Just a man who couldn't sleep at night if I'd done nothing." She smiled faintly, the first real smile he'd seen. He reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small piece of jerky, handing it to her. "Ain't much, but it'll keep you going." Tala took it, her fingers brushing his. "You different," she murmured. "You fight, but not with hate." He looked at her then, really looked, the way her hair caught the firelight, the strength in her eyes despite the pain. Something inside him shifted, something quiet but deep. By the third day, they reached the edge of the Pecos River. Across the water lay a small trading post, safety for now. But as they neared the bridge, Ethan spotted movement behind them. Riders, 3 of them, Apache warriors again. "Tala," he said, voice low. "Hold tight!" They kicked the horse into a gallop. Bullets and arrows whistled past them. One struck the ground near Ethan's boot. Another grazed the horse's flank, making it rear. Tala clung to him tightly, crying out. Ethan turned in the saddle and fired twice. One rider dropped, the others slowed. He pushed the horse harder, crossing the bridge just as another arrow flew past his head. They reached the trading post, where 2 guards ran out at the commotion. The warriors stopped at the far bank, shouting in fury before turning back into the desert. Ethan slid off the horse, breathless. Tala clutched his hand, trembling. "It's over," he said softly. "You're safe now." But she shook her head. "No, if I stay, more will come. They never forgive." He looked at her, the woman he had saved, who had changed something inside him. "Then we'll keep moving. There's land west of here, quiet and far from war. You could start over." She hesitated, then whispered, "You come with me?" Ethan smiled gently. "I reckon I already have." Weeks later, they built a small cabin near the foothills, where the grass met the river. Ethan worked the land, and Tala gathered herbs, teaching him the ways of her people. The nights were peaceful, no war cries, no wolves, just the sound of crickets and the crackle of fire. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Tala placed a hand on Ethan's cheek. "When I was tied to that tree, I asked the spirits to send me peace before I die. They send you." Ethan took her hand, eyes warm. "Guess the spirits did right by both of us." She smiled, leaning into him as the sky burned gold. And in that quiet corner of the wild, where hatred once ruled and wolves once howled, a cowboy and an Apache woman built a life, proof that even in the harshest deserts, love could still bloom.